We want to remind everyone we have social media exclusive content like our 2-minute drill as well as other video content. To find that, please make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for more. And we are kicking off episode number 15 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I am your host, Jason Duhe. Shortly, I'll be joined by head coach Frank Monaco. We got a loaded show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about prep football as we head into the state finals. Of course, we'll talk some Tulane football. We'll talk about the college football playoff, and we'll have special guests, head coach, Hall of Fame head coach Larry Dauterive. But before we do that, we want to go ahead and thank our sponsor. We want to thank Accardo and Dufresne Law Firm, your go-to River Parish lawyers, and thank them for being the title sponsor of our show. So go ahead and bring on head coach Frank Monaco. Coach, with the Dome coming up and you have all these matchups that kind of pile into one another, I know you've got some experience coaching in that game. How do you temper your team when you have to go in for half? So let's say you have that second game, right? Because there's a lot of or third game. A lot of times you have a scheduled time and you kind of get backed up. So how do you have your team ready, prepared, and mentally able to adjust on the fly when you go for warm-ups and you have no idea when you're going to be exiting that runway for the ball game?
Yeah, that's one thing about playing in a Superdome that's probably a negative. Has a lot of positive. Naturally, the weather, playing in ideal conditions, always going to be 70 degrees, and it's been a goal of yours from August to say, "Hey guys, that's been on the board since August. You climb the ladder, you climb the steps. Every time you won a game, that was so." But now you're here. But now you have to prepare. Once you're here, it's more than just getting here. Now you have to prepare to win. Excuse me. That's more important than anything else. So you have to focus on that. No matter what time they give you. No matter what the conditions are, you'll play it in the middle of Padres Avenue if you have to. But the bottom line, you have to keep them focused and say, this could happen. This could happen. We could be backed up. We could be sitting here for a long time. And then the Superdome themselves, the commissioners will give you their timeline. And that's the one thing that's different. When you're playing at home or playing in your own venue, you decide your timeline. When are you going to go out for pregame? What time is specialty? What time are you coming in? What time you have to flip of the coin. But when you're playing the Superdome, that's decided. That's decided a long time ago exactly when the flip of the coin is going to be. All the presentations, all the awards. There's a lot of standing around with all the awards and ceremonies. So it's pretty intense to keep you focused for that period of time until kickoff. When kickoff starts, now it's game mode. You're ready to go. But I've always really the timeline always got to me. That was the big negative of it. And after the ball game's over, win or lose, they hurry up and they give you the awards and they shuffle off the field for the next game. So that's the downside of it. But the plus side of it, that has always been one of those endearing goals that you have on your chart and on your wall since you're an eighth grader.
Coach, you've played in both situations where you do get to play in the Superdome, and of course through the adjustments and changes, you've also played at different venues. Why is playing at the Superdome different and special as opposed to some of these other places that you've had the opportunity to play in titles?
Well, one thing you have to do, you have to get used to the lights. The ceiling is different. The lighting is different. And, especially on punts and kickoffs and that sort of thing. As far as the field of play and passes, that's not a big issue. But you have to get used to the lights, and that's something that's different because I don't know if the Superdome turns on all the lights like they would for a Tulane game or for a Saints game on the Sundays. But so you have to get different to that. The turf is always a little bit different because, for us, for instance, at St. John's Catholic, we played on grass and natural grass the entire year. But they did have some experience on playing some games on turf. And that's a little bit different because you have to get used to it. And sometimes you can trip on it because you're not used to it. Even though you wear your same cleats, that they can do that. So there's some differences there, and you can't go in there and start looking at the scoreboard, get all But people say big-eyed about things. You just have to worry about the field. The field's still 100 yards long, and it's still 160 feet wide. So that's not going to change. But the bottom line, you still got to worry about your opponent, and you got to worry about yourself. And that's what coaches tell them. Said we're not worried about who we're playing. Let's worry about ourselves. Let's not beat ourselves. Let's let the other opponent beat us.
All right, Coach, and let's go ahead and take a look at our bracket breakdowns. We're going to go ahead and start prep talk. Of course, state finals week. Have a ton of great matchups. We're going to go ahead and start and look in order as they go. Let's take a look at Thursday. So Thursday, we're going to start things off at 3:30. Riverside takes on Southern Lab in that 3:30 opening kickoff. Coach, Southern Lab is a team that's been here before, has a ton of experience, and the Kittens have freak show athletes all over the field. It's what they do. While Riverside, again, they have some monsters up front. They have some really big boys and a smaller running back that can kind of hide behind those guys. But we know the job that Coach Roussel has done at Riverside, and they feel like this is an opportunity to put their program on the map and bring them back to prominence.
Yeah, they're the number 5 seed. They got 5 senior offensive linemen up front, and I think he feels that that's his thing. When he worked for me, he worked with offensive line. When he was at Rome, he was offensive line coach. When he was at Lutcher, that's what he was. And so, the head coach and the offensive line, that's a real good combination. So he's going to get them. He's going to make sure that they're physical. He's going to make sure that they run the ball with their zone concept. So I think they would do an excellent job. The other team's more talented, but the more talented team, you've seen that every week. That's not necessarily going to win. Southern Lab came from behind to win last week to get there. So sometimes you spend so much energy trying to get to the Superdome. And that final game, I can remember the year that we won it in 2011, we really didn't play a great game. The semifinal game took so much out of us. And by the time we got there, we played well. Enough to win, but we didn't. After the ball game, you just felt unfulfilled because you didn't play your best game.
That was a Parkview win, right? Semifinal Parkview 17-14. That was a field goal near. I believe the time expired, right? I mean, it was right, down the wire. Yeah,
yes,
a great ball game. I got a chance to be there. But looking at Thursday, again, 7:00. You're going to have Haynesville taking on Oak Grove. Coach, this is a game that just consistently pops up in the Superdome. These are two teams that have become rivals through their opportunities to play each other in the Superdome. What's this game going to look like on the field Thursday night?
Haynesville, Coach Fred Franklin, when he was there, he had so many championships, and every year you could just pencil them in that they were going to be there. This is their 4 seed. Oak Grove was a 3 seed. We said weeks ago on this show that they'll probably end up being there. So, and that's always a brawler. It's a shame that they both have to travel 6 hours to get here to play one another when they could have traveled just 45 minutes. But it's going to be a good game to watch. I mean, you won't see flashy players. You see a couple guys going 2 ways, but you're going to see guys being very physical, and they'll block and tackle, as we talked about earlier.
And as you mentioned, it's a Division IV non-select ball game, so both teams are pretty much going to have at least a few guys going both ways. We know the numbers are a little bit lower on that end. But again, you should expect to see a ton of great football Thursday night and afternoon. Let's go take a look at Friday. So the first game on Friday is going to be the Division II non-select matchup between Opelousas and Cecilia. Coach, Opelousas kind of came out of nowhere, but we've discussed this before. The most wide open brackets are Division II and Division III non-select. And this is kind of proof as Opelousas was able to make it as a 12 seed, but they did go on Cecilia. And you're familiar with Cecilia and what they're able to do. This is a team that's been near the top of the power ratings, near the top of poll rankings as well. This is a very good football team, and gotten a chance to see them play. They're a very talented football team.
They have an excellent junior quarterback at Cecilia that can light it up. They're a 2 seed. Opelousas is a 12 seed only because they lost their 2 losses with 2 to real big schools and good football team. And everybody saw them coming. Nobody wanted to play them. And so they're gonna slow the game down. They're gonna get 3 or 4 yards a pop, and the quarterback is really exciting to watch. And they got some good athletes and with a huge offensive line. And these guys were together. I remember a guy telling me, he said, "I have a 9th grade group of the junior high. Wait till they get to high school, and that group is now there. So this could be an interesting game and one you want to see."
3:30 kickoff. Division III non-select. You have Union Parish taking on St. James, our second River Parish team that we're going to talk about. Coach, we know what type of team that St. James has because you've seen it. They have athletes all over the field. They'll have a few big guys up front. But you know when you're playing Union Parish, when you're playing a North Louisiana team, big, physical, hard-hitting, conservative football.
Yeah,
so I think it's a great contrast in style.
Union Parish's Coach Spatz has always been a real strong advocate of what they call powerlifting. He runs the powerlifting program there. He makes his own football players get into the powerlifting program. And when those guys take their shirt off, they're chiseled, kind of like me, but they're very chiseled. St. James, with Coach Davis, what he's done there, has been remarkable, very humble man. been remarkable. But the big win last week, they're the 3 seeds. Union Parish is the 4 seed. So this could be a really good matchup. It will be brute strength against speed in this ball game.
Thanks, Coach. And don't forget about that final game of the night, which is going to be the Division I select matchup between Acadiana taking on Catholic. Of course, you mentioned it earlier. After the first game, you really don't know when these games are going to be played, but it's scheduled for 7 o'clock. Acadiana has a phenomenal defense. You have Dominic McKinley. You have Babineau in the secondary. And that's not to mention Harris at linebacker, a big physical group of young men that I was able to watch play against Carr. Again, a Carr team that many people were touting as maybe one of the best teams in the state, if not the best, and handled them. Of course, Carr put up some points, but a very good ball club. They're not going to play outside of the confines of that veer offense, dive football, but Catholic is going to have their hands full, and we know that they're a consistent team that's fighting for dome spots, but they're going to have their hands full with this Acadiana ball club.
When they come off the bus and you looked at both teams, you definitely would pick Catholic high. Their offensive line is big, it's massive, they're athletic. The quarterback is really a good player. They have a good running back in a nice scheme. But when it comes to the trenches, Acadiana will roll off the ball. I mean, it looks like they got these things they call a metronome that those musicians use. They look like they're in sync, and they come off the ball with just about a half a count early every time. And when the quarterback hands off the ball, he's not handing the ball off at any time in the backfield. He's already stepped into the line of scrimmage. So when you look up and say, well, he didn't gain much, all of a sudden it was a 4-yard gain. So they're going to control the line of scrimmage with the inside veer and then the outside veer, depending upon the front. So look for this to be a good one. Catholic High, last couple of weeks had a tough ball game against Curtis. They had to score at the end of the game. I think they were the beneficiary of a call there. I'll talk about that later. And then against Rummel last week, they faked the punt with late in the ball game, and of course they had to go back to finish that ball game on a Saturday. And then he hit a 4th and 7 for a touchdown, and Rummel had a touchdown that was ruled an incompletion. But they're a really athletic team. But now this game, because the LHSAA did a nice job of putting 3.5 hours in between games, and I think that's really helped it. Prior to that, they used to have sometimes 4 games in one day. It was shorter, but I think the 3.5 hours, so things could be on time.
Let's hope so. We know how. Again, as a coach, it's difficult for a game to end. It's like, great, I have to wait another 45 minutes before the kickoff. So looking at the next matchup, which will be on Saturday at 12 o'clock, it'll be St. Thomas More taking on Lafayette Christian, which will be a rematch of last year's final. I think we both kind of discussed this throughout the year, expected these two teams to match up. St. Thomas More has been one of, if not the most consistent team throughout the entire year. They've been near the top of the power ratings, like we mentioned earlier with Cecilia, a very good ball club. Now, LCA has a ton of talent all over the field. You have Jawan Johnson, who is the all-time leading passer in Louisiana State football history. The game went down to the wire last year. I would expect very similar results, but who knows which way it's going to go this year.
I think so, too. I think St. Thomas More has been looking forward to this game. We could have put this game together week 1. Everybody saw they were the best in the bracket, and it came to fruition that they're going to meet in the Superdome. It's going to be a game that's probably to be the highlight, I think, of the Superdome, because everybody's going to look for this particular matchup that they've been waiting for with a lot of good athletes. And based on last year, because last year was really a tremendous game. Really, Lafayette Christian should have won it last year. They were way ahead at the end, but I'm sure that they're thinking about that, and that's going to give them just a little bit more fuel for this ball game.
And after reeling off a few consecutive state titles, they find themselves without one the past 2 years, so they're definitely hungry for one as well. In the next matchup, we're going to have the Division III select side, which will be St. Charles Catholic taking on Calvary Baptist. Calvary is used to big offense, big numbers offensively. Their quarterback just became the new leading passer in school history, and we know a long legacy of great quarterbacks at that school. But Coach St. Charles Catholic has a little bit something to say about that as well. They're going for their 3rd consecutive state title. Coach Weinstein has done a phenomenal job, and that staff defensively has consistently shut down these big offenses. I think that this, without a doubt, one of, if not the most exciting matchup from an X and O standpoint is going to be this offensive Calvary Baptist taking on this defensive St. Charles Catholic.
Well, I think the big thing is can Calvary Baptist stop St. Charles? And I think that's going to be the big issue, because if they can't, then it becomes a scoring deal if they can score. I think that St. Charles Catholic's defense is built for spread teams. I think they have really good corners. They can run at the linebacker position, and they're built. I mean, they can play a nickel dime package because they got the personnel to do that. So I don't see that Calvary Baptist. I think the competition they've played up there is not even close to what St. Charles' schedule has been. And St. Charles does a great job on special teams. I think you will see a huge difference here with their special teams versus Calvary Baptist. They punted 9 times all year long. That's how good their offense has been. But again, they have not played, I don't think, the competition that St. Charles has played. On the paper, it looks like a big matchup, but I don't see it like that. I think St. Charles had the state championship game was last week, to be honest with you, and because that was the war against University High.
And as you mentioned, if you have only punted that few times throughout the season, imagine if you have to punt once against that special teams unit of St. Charles. It's going to be a dangerous play. And we've mentioned that before. If you don't practice special teams and you don't have the opportunity to be putting in the game use, sometimes it'll bite you, especially when playing your former squad. But looking at the Division I non-select, we have another fascinating matchup between Ruston and Zachary. Again, big physical ball club in Ruston against Zachary. Zachary always finds himself in this type of position. Big playmakers on the outside, athletes all over the field. But I love this quote from a young man on Ruston. I didn't catch his name, but I saw it online. And he said, everybody thinks they're physical until they play us. And, Ruston has been a very physical team. Found himself on the short side of the Superdome last year, trying to win their state title this year.
Well, the one thing that they don't play this game in the phone booth, and that's a good thing. Zachary's got a lot of skill, but the way you negate that is that if you just rush the ball and keep that offense off the field, those flashy offenses, and because the 40-second clock, we've talked about this, I think it's changed the game in high school, where it used to be 10, 12 possessions. Now with that type of offense that Ruston has, you might restrict that team to 7, maybe 8 possessions at best. So they better make them count. And that's the same thing as the Acadiana and the Catholic High. They're polar opposites in terms of their offensive philosophy. But when you get a team that can grind it out and give you very, very few possessions and be there in the fourth quarter, you have a very good chance to win that ball game. So this could be a bloodbath in the line of scrimmage. But Zachary do have a lot of D1 guys running around that field also that can probably negate that power of Ruston has.
Coach, we've mentioned before how you've worked hand in hand with the defensive coordinator in your teams. Have you ever even had a desire to go out there and be like, let's just see if we can do a high flying offense? I know you've very much been run game first oriented and open up opening the rushing through the passing and vice versa. But have you ever had any desire to go out and spread it out and just see how many points you can put up?
Well, I don't. I think it's all about complementary football. I don't think you want to sell out your defense, because a lot of coaches, they want to build up their stats, but yet if you go out there and you score quickly, and we could have easily done that. You go out there and let's go out and really go to a fast-paced offense, but you score quickly, where your defense is back on the field, and all of a sudden they get gassed at about the third or fourth quarter. Because they've taken more snaps. You scoring a lot, but they're playing a lot of snaps also. And when that normally happens, they're probably giving up some plays. So I think it's very important that you play to your defense. In other words, you set up the field position and play to your defense, and set up for, even if it takes a field goal. And I think you control the game with your offense. I've always believed that. Even my passing game has always been, I consider what we call ball control passing game, because we never had the speed to go take the top off the defense a little bit. So I believe in the curl routes, the short spot routes and option routes, and rather than trying to take the ball, throwing the ball deep, because if you go out there versus air and you just try to throw some deep balls versus air, you're going to see if you short 10 passes, I guarantee you 4 out of 10 might hit the ground. So it's not a great percentage right there. So I think the most important thing that you can do is do what your personnel can handle.
Coach, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, being the winningest head coach in River Parish football history, 3 teams, three River Parish teams find themselves in state title. What does that tell you about the River Parish and the brand of football that's played in that region?
It's all about the culture. It's all about the River Parish itself. The kids think football, think highly of football. And, the old adage is that 2 seasons, the football season and spring football, but nowadays baseball has gotten to be so big in River Parish and in the entire state. But that's one thing that people don't realize, that the St. Charles team I'll take, for instance, and I go back to them because they're a great example. Their entire baseball team plays football. So what does that mean? That's it. One, they learn toughness, and two, they're in the weight room year round. So I mean that's a big advantage. I mean they're not pencil necks anymore. Like when they're competing, I don't care what the sport is, you're a better athlete.
Thanks, Coach. And we'll go ahead and take a look at some college football talk as Tulane took a tough loss to SMU. And, Coach, it felt like SMU kind of dominated the game from the jump. And of course, there might have been some other factors that led to that. But Tulane had a rough night. And SMU, in my opinion, probably should have gotten the group of 5 berth because of the schedule they played, because of the teams that they played and the quality of opponents. But again, they've had a tremendous season, and hats off to them for going to Tulane in a less than ideal conditions and winning that ball game.
Well, I think SMU was clearly the better team. They were more physical. They were better in the offensive line. In that ball game, Tulane looked like a high school team compared to SMU. They got a fumble early, and they went up 7-0, and that really helped. And it looked like, hey, this might be easy because they got the turnover. But after that, SMU came in with their backup quarterback that could run. They didn't stop him, and then after that, they didn't stop with a run or pass. Everything was open, and I don't think Tulane played their best game, but I think if SMU plays their best game, Tulane plays their best game, SMU still win. The game was a lot closer than the score was. I mean, I'm sorry, it was not as close as the score was. SMU. Because of all the field goals they kicked, that was like a 3-touchdown. They were 3 touchdowns better than Tulane that night. They were lucky. Tulane was lucky just to be down and have a shot with 2 possessions at the end of the game. But they weren't there. I don't know if it's a byproduct of them hearing about Coach, maybe possibility of leaving, but I don't think it was that. I think their focus was pretty much trying to get to that other bowl game, that big bowl game, going to Fiesta Bowl maybe. But SMU, and I agree with you, certainly deserved that other shot because they lost 2 ball games on the road to better opponents and in early in the year. And I think that they did it all through the portal. That's amazing what they did through the portal.
And we're going to touch on that in just a moment, but I want to clarify as well. Liberty had the 133. For those who aren't aware, that's dead last in strength of schedule. And SMU lost games on the road to TCU and Oklahoma. So to clarify the moving goalposts of the committee, which we're going to talk about in a few moments. But, Coach, we have to discuss the elephant in the room, which is the fact that Coach Willie Fritz takes the head coaching position at Houston. And we had the discussion. It's unfortunate. And I do think I want to applaud the Tulane family and fans for being so supportive of him. It's very disappointing and sad that you do see him go. But, again, understand that he's doing what he thinks is best for him and his family. And it's disappointing because of we want to see him. But let me
explain what the people don't know. The people don't know this, and I'm going to miss him. I'm going to miss him as a friend. He's a class guy. He's a phenomenal coach, and I've said this on this show many times. But with Tulane, people don't understand. One, academics at Tulane are different. They're different. Coach Fritz, I know he has to bring every athlete has to go to the admissions board, like every school, but he has to go through the admissions board, and those things and there's a filter there. And not everybody he recruits gets to be accepted at Tulane by the board. So he has to fight that academic thing. One of the reasons that he left, he has to practice every morning. And the reason he practices in the morning because the kids are involved in lab schools. If you're engineering students, you got things that you have to courses that are offered in the afternoon that are not in the morning. So what they do, rather than the kid miss practice, coach had them practice in the morning. That has been a tradition to eliminate the hassle of kids missing practice. It was like that when I was there, and and it's still present. So people understand that. At the University of Houston, you'll be able to practice anytime you want to. You walk out of your back door. The other thing he wanted was facility. He wanted an indoor facility. I was one that from the very beginning thought that they should have built an indoor facility instead of the stadium, and because I thought they needed that. A stadium you're going to use 6 times a year. indoor facility you can use 100 times a year. Now, think about that, because right now he has to go to the Superdome when he needs the indoor facility, or he goes to the Saints facility. And I think that involves busing and time on the road and stuff like that. Also, the staff pay. Over the years, you go back and look at the number of assistant coaches that Coach Fritz lost. And most of that was not because they didn't want to work with him. Most of that was the fact that they were offered more money and probably another position to other schools. So those things that he had worried about. At the University of Houston, by comparison, the Golden Triangle, which encompasses Beaumont and the Houston area, they have more high schools in that area than all of Louisiana. And they have 5 and 6A schools, and that's what people don't understand. That so now the practice in the morning, the schedule, and one thing I will say this: a few years ago, everybody forgot Hurricane Ida. He was displaced. They were in Birmingham. Yeah, they had no coaching officer. They really didn't have. The kids had to sleep in some kind of a dormitory. They were not at home, and they were there for a couple months. So that was hard on him, and that was really his best team as far as personnel was concerned. He could have easily, won a lot of ball games, but he had to go to Oklahoma, he had to go to Ole Miss, and that was really tough on him. And when he had to go through that, and I'm sure that's stuck in his mind a little bit, that Ida year, and the promises that were made by the department. Has anything been done since last year? Because the Georgia Tech thing came up last year. Were those promises about the facilities and the staff and more money? Were those fulfilled? We don't know if they were fulfilled or not. But there's a lot of reasons that you look at that Tulane is a hard job. And it takes a lot of work, and it's a grind with a guy like him, because everything that you do, it's a little harder than just at some of the schools. And you go into Houston, things are a little bit more fluid. You get kids in the school, that's easier. There's a lot of money. There's a big billionaire there. Of course, there's a lot of money at Tulane too. But the stadium is right there, so there's a lot of advantages going there. And even though, let's say, who is Houston? A lot of my friends say, well, who is Houston? Well, there's nobody special, but he's got a chance to build it there in terms of that. So you can't fault him for maybe wanting to finish his career there and taking that 1 5-year contract and then maybe right off in the sunset.
Yeah, Coach, and as I said, for the most part, I think most fans have been very supportive. And, he's done a lot at Tulane and built a lot. But as you mentioned, even a quote from him, which I heard while coming home from work today, and it's from Coach Fritz, and it was in reference to facilities. And he said, it's nice to see shovels in the dirt. I've been places where we've talked about that, and it hasn't materialized. So that's from Coach's mouth. That's a direct quote from him. And it's sad to see him go, but again, I do think what he's done at Tulane does leave some type of groundwork for the next man up, whoever it may be. And I do think they have a great opportunity to be successful here. But moving on to other college football talk, we have to discuss the committee's decision to leave out Florida State. And ironically, I mentioned Liberty getting this game, but for completely different reasons, Alabama was pushed into the playoff as opposed to Florida State. First of all, Coach, do you agree with that decision? And what teams do you think should have been in the playoff and what ranking?
Well, let me say this. I'm not very good at, I never was good at math, but you had a Power 5. You have 5 conferences considered a Power 5, but you only have 4 slots. So that they gave that formula to the committee. If I'm on a committee, I'm mad. I don't want to be in that committee. Wait a minute, somebody's going to be mad at this anyway. How do you're automatically eliminating a conference champion as soon as you did this? No matter who it is, everybody's talking about Florida State being upset, but nobody's talking about Georgia. They have a gripe also. You're the number 1 team in the country for how many weeks? For 3 years here. You win 29 in a row. You lose in the conference championship by 3 points, and yet I get shut out of a national championship bid. The 4-team format was ridiculous. Remember this. 3 commissioners from the Big Ten, ACC, they voted not to do a 12-team playoff this year. They voted not to do it. Now they're complaining to come to the defense, well, Florida State should have been in it. So my point being is that I'd have never wanted to sit on that committee. You can't blame the committee. They were given a format that was not going to be successful. It was already controversial. But again, why could they just do with everybody else that's done for the FCS? It's 16-team format that's still going on now, and it's worked every year. And they've been doing it for years. and it works. Now you say, well, you're still going to have controversy after 12 games. You're still going to have those people that should have got in. But if the 12th or 13th team is controversial, that's a team that's probably not 12-0. That's a team that you hope to get in, but they're not 12-0. In the NCAA, it's basketball, they take, 64 teams? Even with that, there's controversy about who's left out. But yet, there's somebody that's 65th, 67th, or whatever they are. You know what I mean? Not a undefeated team. So the format itself was doomed from the very, very beginning, and it makes me mad because I've been pushing this for a long, long time about having the playoff here, but they kept avoiding it. But now it's going to be bigger than the Super Bowl. And so those 4 teams that are selected were all good football teams and all deserving. But so was Georgia, so was Florida State. So to answer your question, Jason, I think they got it right, but they based it on Florida State's quarterback being hurt. What would happen in the NFL if the starting quarterback, if I made the playoff, but the starting quarterback can't play? You kick him out? Of course not. If I earned my way there, they don't care who plays. Somebody else better take that spot. So my position is it was doomed from the very, very beginning. No matter how you slice it, 5 does not fit into 4. So is that an equation that I don't know about? But that's my formula. And as far as I'm concerned, they really, really fumbled the ball here.
Coach, to your point, when you talk about those later teams that could be possibly left out, not once have I heard somebody complain about, man, that 67th team that was left out of the NCAA tournament really could have had a chance to win it. Right. I mean, and that's the truth. Maybe there is a 13th team out there that could exist. Again, I've said this before. I'm not a fan of 12, but it's a better system than what we have right now. I'm just not a fan of a bye week for any team. But I do think that is going to be a much needed improvement over the current system that we have in place. But this is also why so many times, Coach, people ask, well, what's your opinion on the playoff and the rankings? And I say, I don't care. It doesn't matter. The committee answers to nobody. They can move up. Look, they moved Alabama from 8 to 4, Coach. They moved Georgia from 1 to 6.
Eliminate the conference championships.
I agree.
Why have them? You have a conference championship, and then you don't. That to me, the FSU won the conference championship, so eliminate them. So anyway, okay.
Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and move on to the New Orleans Saints. And Coach, the Saints dropped a tough one to the Lions. What is the Saints' plan of attack here, Coach? I mean, it seems like it's kind of spiraling out of control. So what do they need to do to get things on track, or better yet, how do they focus on building for the future?
I think they need to get hungry. They can play better. They can play harder. The little things they're not doing well. 2 interceptions. I mean, 2 completions turned to interceptions. How does that happen? Somebody's not focused. They're not working hard enough or something. They're not being held accountable or whatever the deal is. Then there's a fumble. They're getting turnovers at the inopportune time. But you got to give them credit for coming back. They could have folded their tent after being down 21-0. And the Carr gets hurt, but he was actually doing well prior to that. Kamara was doing well. So, but the defense has let them down. I mean, because no matter what, no matter how bad the offense is going, if your defense is holding the offense from explosive plays, and they're not doing that, then you get more at bats on offense. I'm saying force the punt. Get some 3 and outs, give me more at bats, and that way the offense has more chance to think of something. But so it's not dead yet in the water. But if it's not done, the Carolina game is dangerous, I think, because there's a 1-win team, and if they lose to them, I really think that there's going to be very, very little future for some people.
That'll do it for our first segment. When we come back from the break, we're going to have special guest Larry Dauterive, Hall of Fame head coach. And we want to thank our title sponsor, Accardo and Duhe Law Firms, your go-to River Parish lawyers. We'll be back after the break. Samuel Accardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Accardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Tonight, our special guest is Hall of Fame head coach Larry Dauterive. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And what would be your advice to any young coaches looking to get into the profession in the current present state of high school football?
Think again. It's totally different than when we started in 1965. It was just a pleasure to be on a staff that was. I was fortunate to come up on a man named Faze Mahfouz in New Iberia, and took me on his way and gave me a junior high job, and the rest is history. But the young kids that you're coaching today, they don't want to pay their dues. They want to put a shirt on and be the head coach on Friday night without any knowledge of the game or enough knowledge of the game. But it's a fabulous profession. It's been good to me. Not much pay, but a lot of gratitude and a lot of grinding daily and trying to help kids. We all in this business to help young people succeed, So the greatest thrill I have is once in a while, some kid from 50 years ago pick up the phone and call and told me what I made and the impression I made on their lives. So that's about all the pay, the compensation we get.
Coach Doe, that's the affectionate name of a lot of your players that you run into at Walmart, and when you say, "Yeah, I play for Coach Doe," and because you really were special to a lot of your kids, you're exactly right about that. Because Coach, your background takes you through a lot of things. You're one of the few guys that's coached on the high school level, you've coached on the college level, and you're coaching in Canadian football on the pro level. So tell us a little bit about your background coaching, where you started as Lady of Fatima and all those years with Faze Mahfouz and those things, and our public doesn't know that. So refresh them about your background.
Frank, I started in 1965 in the junior high. Coach Mahfouz gave me my first job. I had student taught at New Iberia High, and I stayed there with him a couple of years. He was a wing T guy, and I like to throw the ball. So I went to Fatima High School. Fatima and Cathedral became St. Thomas More in 1985, but in '67 I moved to Fatima with a guy named Phil Stomer. Two of us on the staff. He was the head coach. I was the assistant, and in January of '68, he moved up to the State Department, and I got a call from the priest and said, "You're 25 years old. We want to give you a shot to be the head coach." And I wasn't any more ready than you were when you got your first job. But we had this is before integration. We had all white kids, and I had some great athletes, and we were able to win a lot of games. And from there, I went to Lafayette High under Bob Mahfouz, 1971. And he was a phenomenal head coach. I was the offensive coordinator. Mike Mowar was the defensive coordinator. We also won a lot of games there. Then in 1976, I moved to Winfield, Louisiana, in North Central, and was able to play for a state championship and lost in the finals to the Jesuit team at
beat us at Luncher. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beat you in the semifinals. But anyway, so I was there 3 years, and in 1979, Coach Lambright hired me for Louisiana Tech, and I was there for 6 years. And then got out, actually took a foray into the business world and went into banking business in New Orleans for a gentleman whose son I had recruited from Jesuit. And but I lived the life for 3 years and moved back and got to Riverside for a year, then went to East Ascension for a year, then the Canadian League, and then back to the States in Opelousas, and went to the Opelousas High for 6 years, went to Opelousas Catholic for 4 years, and came to East St. John in 2002 and coached there till 2010. And I'm currently employed with Red Stick Sports, selling sporting goods. But my wife is a saint going straight to heaven. I moved her 17 times in our 58 years of marriage. So I've had a blessed life, 2 daughters, 2 granddaughters, and now I finally have a great grandchild son. So, man, I'm hoping I'm hang around long enough to be able to let him how to throw a football. But it's been a good run.
You had a great run, and you're still not done yet. You know, I know you travel the state, you keep up with football an awful lot. And you had mentioned something earlier. I mean, you know, I know you're a good family man because you got a lovely wife, and you know, we all have to have great wives and in this profession because they basically raise the kids. And when you get home at night, you know, they tell you, hey, dinner's in a microwave, so help yourself. But Coach, you know, as you go around and see some of the things in practice, what have you noticed about some of the things that in practice and or even games? I know you still go to a ball game. You also eat those great crabs over there at the bowling pot over there in Destrehan. So we've been there a couple of times together. So, but what are some of the things that you noticed that a little bit different, like Jason alluded to earlier?
Frank, I feel sorry today for the kids that are playing for coaches that just put a whistle around their neck and just walk around, and there's no practice plans, no emphasis on the kicking game. Like you guys did the best job of all I've ever seen in 45 years of coaching and with the kicking game, and you exemplified what high school coaching is supposed to be about. But I see so many kids cheated by coaches that just they don't have a plan when they walk out there, no practice plan, no scripts. That's the thing I see. I just see people that not wanting to pay the price anymore. You know, the thing with the huddle, you don't have to go out and hustle film like we used to have to go sit at the bus station and wait for those old 16 millimeters to come in.
2 o'clock in the morning, yes.
Yeah, but it's all an improvement. It's no question. If we had that in our arsenal, we might still be coaching. But I just see that the teams that work consistently in the Dome, just like what's happening at your old school, St. Charles, it's a byproduct of what you established there 20-something years ago. And just to watch that team play is just a total glory minute for me when I watch them play and see the disparity in size and talent that the other teams have compared to them. And they just, you taught them well. And I mean, you raised some great coaches and assistant coaches, and but there's not enough Frank Monicas and Wayne Steins and Ty Monicas and people like that right now. And that's why they're consistent every year. And it won't be the best athletes, but I mean, they're always in the right spot. And I know I wouldn't want to play against y'all anymore because I tell you, they're so well prepared. It's incredible.
Coach, you've seen, you know, you've had a lot of great memories, a lot of great wins. I remember when I recruited your school, when you were at Opelousas, you had a real tremendous win and against John Curtis. And I mean, they had parades and everything. That was a great moment, but I'm sure you've had moments like that. But what were some of the other great moments that you had as far as big victories? Because I get that question every now and then, and it's hard for me to answer. Do you have any that come to mind?
Frank, that one in 92, matter of fact, I just come back from Canada, inherited an 0-10 team, and in 91, we won 8 games, and the next year we lost in the semifinals to Salmon. But that team with Robert Hammond and Sam George and Pat Miller, who you recruited to Tulane, that night in Opelousas was magic. They were, I don't know, the number 1 team in America at that time, where they had, you know, they got Chris Howard at running back, Eddie, big kid that played nose guard. Just a phenomenal team, and we beat them in double overtime, and that was probably one of the greatest victories I've ever had. But you know, coming into the river parishes, I wasn't real aware of who was good and who was bad, and going against Hahnville and Destrehan in their heyday, that was some phenomenal games. And you know, we set a state record with Lou Valley and Hahnville going 6 overtimes, and the reason you have to start going for 2 after the 3rd overtime is because the game lasted till midnight, and they said we're not going to do that anymore. And but Destrehan, we had some great games with them when Robichaud was there. It's an honor. It was an honor to play in that district, you know. And they, but I've had some good wins. You know, when I was at Louisiana Tech, we played for the national championship semifinals one year against Delaware. The next, in the following years, we lost to Montana State in the finals. But you know, I was able to go to the Canadian League and coach my old quarterback, Matt Dunnigan, who broke all of Terry Bradshaw's records up at Tech. And just I got to coach Doug Flutie when they traded Matt to Calgary. And just the relationships, Frank, you know, it's just worth more than a win. You know, I just the state championship eluded me. You know, I went to the finals once. We lost to Jesuits 7-0 the year before you won state. And but anyway, I'm thankful. The victories are secondary to the relationship I made and the kids I sent to school. You know, the 9 years I was at East St. John, we sent 69 kids to school. And they wasn't all Division Ones. I mean, the Ryan Paraloos of the world, you couldn't miss them. But those guys that when I'd go to the AFCA convention, I'd go to the junior college sessions and the NAIA schools because those kids that were falling through the cracks at East St. John academically and they needed help, and I was able to place them. They didn't all stay, but 69 of them had a chance to go and make something out of themselves. So,
that was tremendous. You know, that's why you're in the LHSAA Hall of Fame for all those things that you've accomplished. It wasn't about a final championship. It was all about your process and what you did for people. I remember on Sunday, Coach, you didn't practice on Saturday because all your kids worked. And right. I remember that you had to bring them in on Sunday just to get a practice in and get a little jump on things. I mean, nowadays, the coaches don't do that. I mean, some of them can't practice on Sunday, but some of them work on Sunday, and that's their breakdown. Coach, what's your thoughts about the football? Is football in general, the game of football? Is it a better game now than when you and I first came into it and coached, or is it worse, or is it about the same?
I would say it's about the same, but it's based on your philosophy. You know, I like to throw it first, getting off the bus, and that's what I hone my success on. But I've had I just see the advantages people have now with huddle, but you still can't. You have to do it right. I know there's some schools playing in the home this week that do not come in on weekends. Each coach has a huddle thing, and they meet on Monday morning to discuss it. They don't ever come in as a group. It defies logic to me, but what am I saying? Hey, I'm at home watching and they're still playing. But I can't tell you. I just know it's still a great game. But Frank, you know, nobody was more sound on fundamentals as you and your staff. And it's still blocking and tackling. I watched those little guys, those cornerbacks come up from St. Charles the other night, 5'5", 130, and just drilling those backs and receivers when they caught the ball. And that's all coaching. And the kicking game is so neglected today. And that's one of the things y'all did better than anybody, you know, and still doing it. So the game is still a great game, and that's why we watch it. I'm not much of a pro guy, but I'll watch a high school. I'll watch people just playing touch football on the street. I mean, just you stay at this long, you just we kind of just we're gluttons for punishment, I guess, from the standpoint of how much we love that thing, and we've neglected our families. You know, you coached in college for a lot of years, and Nancy had to raise your children, and Kay did the same for me, but. I'm blessed. I'm 81 years old, and I wouldn't take a day for step back for anything I did. I'm just I'm grateful to have been in that arena.
Coach, you and I talk about every other day or something like that, and we talked about the salaries that they're throwing around, not only for the head coaches, but what assistant coaches are making. We talked a little bit about the NIL thing, the transfer portal, how that's really changed. College athletics, it's not even college athletics anymore. It's basically semi-pro football, you know, stuff like that, because it's not you're not working on your scholarship anymore and working for a degree. You're working to get to the next level. And that's all the kids nowadays talk about is the league. That's all they talk about, the league. What's your thoughts on all this new thing they're going in college? And what I'm afraid of, Coach, is that some of this is sifting down into Louisiana of football also.
Frank, I think what's happening now, I feel sorry for the marginal kid who heretofore as as a tweener, had a chance to go D1 and everything right now. But when a coach can go into the portal and take a 22-year-old to try to salvage his program, rather than take an 18-year-old coming out of high school and try to develop them, those things are not done anymore. When I was at Louisiana Tech, I remember McNeese, when Ernie Dupchenne and Jack Dolan and those guys were there, they would go to Iowa and get a Buford Jordan and Stephon Starring from Vinton and all those Class B schools, and they didn't have to play right away. But those guys, they developed players, and they won so long. And man, they'd get you in that pit down there in Lake Charles. They wouldn't let you out till they tore you up, I feel sorry for the kids today that are not going to get signed or have to go to another venue, maybe a junior college, when they could qualify for a Division I school, because somebody that's played 4 or 5 years and has graduated is going to take their place. It's a sad day. And you're talking about the money that's being spent and to pay to those coaches. And Frank, this is a story I might have related to you. In 1965, I was paid $4,000 for teaching and $1,200 for coaching. So I was making $5,200 when I left. I was making $58,000. So I went to Fatima for $6,000. And when Phil Stormer left in January of '68, the priest and the nun called me in and told me, we're going to pay you $7,800 and we're going to give you a car to drive. I went home and told Kay, we're never going to have another financial problem in our life. And when I see the monstrosity of these contracts that are going on around, even high school, listen, I'm for everybody making all they can, because there's not enough money in this profession to make you rich. But I would have done this for free, Frank, just like you would have.
So my first job was like yours. My first job was three preparations, 5 classes, 3 sports, $7,500. The head coach was making 11. I thought he was a millionaire.
Correct.
But coach, the rules and whatnot are so much relaxed now. Even in high school, we're finding out that they don't want to do the surveillance anymore. They used to have a high school calendar where you had basketball couldn't start until a certain date, soccer couldn't start until a certain date, baseball couldn't start. Now it's wide open. It's wide open, and there's no restriction on when they can start practice with their team. So I find that has really, really changed us and changed us all. And some of the things that are happening in college are now sifting down on our level. And I'd like to see, like you and I both, we'd like to see it all come back together again. All the teams play one another, where you have a true champion with 32-team bracket for everybody. And that would limit it down back to 5 championships like it used to be in 2013. But, I know it's a tough year, and I think Mr. Bodine inherited this thing. And hopefully that someday that the people come to this and say, hey, let's get back together again, because now it's almost that way anyway, because Acadiana was thrown into that select side. But just a little story about Bill Dotson was there, Coach. I remember recruiting his school, and you talked about Acadiana earlier. They run that split back veer and stuff like that. I remember Ted Davidson taking the offensive lineman out 45 minutes before the rest of the team came out in the blocking shoot. Yep. And in the blocking shoot, 45 minutes. By the time the other team came out for stretching, his kids were all lathered up and ready to go again 45 minutes earlier. And that's why they're one of the teams. And I think Jason and I talked about that before this podcast started. But but coaches, anything else that you'd like to add? I mean, you have to tell your beautiful wife hello for us, and we're going to go out and eat some more of those big dead crabs. Coach Doe, everybody, he loves these big old crabs. And
Frank, the thing that bothers me more than anything else now is when back in the day we keep dating ourselves, but it was an honor when you won a district championship. You knew you were going to be at home, and the second place team was going to be on the road. That was it. There was no such thing as a 2-8 team getting in the playoffs like happened now. It just cheapens things. I can remember in Winfield we lost in the state finals in '76. In '77 we went 8-2 and didn't make it. Don Shaws had just come from Farmerville to Jonesboro Hodge. They won the district. Red Franklin came out second, but we were 8-2. We lost 2 games to those 2 people, and we didn't get in. Now you're seeing watered down people 2-8 and getting in. It's just so unfair. It just watered things down, and we need to try to get this thing back together where the competitiveness is so much better. But
Coach, I went through that myself. I was a Jesuit. We had the best team I had at Jesuit, 8-2. We didn't make the playoffs, and that year. And I was a senior in high school when they first incorporated Larry. The second team went in, and we played Morgan City. It had 5 losses on a rainy day, and we were undefeated. And we went to Morgan City, and they beat us. I'll never forget that. And we were a step away from the state championship, but cases like that, we talked about, we all can remember those. My wife said, you can't remember our anniversary, my birthday, or anything, but you can remember every play 50 years ago, So.
I can do that, but I can still remember my wife's birthday and anniversary.
I have to write it on my hand. Coach, thank you so much for being with us, and I'm sure we're going to talk more this week and probably see you and sit together at the Superdome. But thank you so much for being on tonight.
Frank, you're the best that ever coached, and it's an honor to be your friend.
Well, thank you so much, Coach. I really appreciate you doing that. God bless you. You have a good Christmas too, Coach. And listen, don't forget, you got my address to send my Christmas present?
I do.
Okay, good.
I'll put it in mail. Guys, thanks, Justin. Good seeing y'all again.
We'd like to thank special guest Larry Dauterive for joining us on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. And we'd also like to thank LSR for being our sponsor. LSR produces Southern Cane Pure Cane Sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets. Samuel Liccardo Jr. and Henri P. Dufresne, your go-to River Parish lawyers. Experience, tenacity, and results. Sammy Liccardo and Henri Dufresne provide comprehensive legal services in personal injury, hurricane claims, business litigation, successions, and estate planning. Our trial experience, know-how, and commitment to protect and serve our clients is unparalleled. We provide complete real estate, title, and escrow services through our affiliate, State Title LLC. The River Parishes is our home, and serving our communities is our passion. Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane Pure Cane Sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Welcome back to our third and final segment on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. We'd like to thank Riverlands Insurance for being a sponsor of our show. In 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. So we're going to go ahead and jump into our Let's Be Frank segment presented by ULCS. And this week, Coach, you want to talk about instant replay in high school football playoffs. So, Coach, go ahead and take it away.
Coach, guys, after reviewing some of the games of these 3 previous weeks, and we've talked about this on this show before, but this week in the Superdome, they will have instant replay for the games. Sometimes that's a little bit too late for the team that got screwed somewhere down the line. Now, it's not about the officiating that saw things in real time. It's not about that. It's about getting it right. It's about reviewing the play, was what they sure that this play was called correctly, rather than relying on one guy that saw it from a different angle and he saw it on real time. And I was at a game Saturday and I saw a catch that was ruled incomplete. That was a real big play. I saw the week before there was a catch that was out of bounds that was ruled inbound. I saw a fumble this past week by a team All these were teams that were eliminated from going to the Superdome because of potential calls that could have been reversed had they had instant replay. Now, were those teams that won the game? We don't know that. But at least don't take it away from a team that's been practicing since August, and all those teams don't have to get another chance to play in the Superdome or play for a state championship. I think it's too big of a deal for us to just take it lightly. And why not? I don't understand it. When I even asked the LHSAA official one time, why don't you have, say, well, some schools can't afford it. So wait a minute. Everybody in high school now has a media department. If not, they have federal grants for this. I said, there are coaches now that have huddle that sit at their house and they can review a play and run it back from their living room. I said, that's a poor excuse. But it could really be incorporated, and it should be incorporated at least in the playoffs. Okay, during the season, if they want to have it, that's fine. But it should be incorporated during the playoffs. And I just think that a lot of players really get the disadvantage this way. It's kind of like going to the doctor. You get a second opinion. Now, if they can't decide it on the field, if the film doesn't show it, they got sideline cameras. They even got iPads on the sideline that coaches use anyway. When kids come off the field, a coach takes his iPad from that play and they can show what a kid has done wrong or what he's done correctly. And you see NFL with those guys on the side looking at the tape and looking at the defenses and stuff like that. It's too easy to do that. And I just need that reviewable play. If you can't decide what it is after looking at it, whatever the call on the field stands. What's wrong with that? And it doesn't have to be for everything. I'm talking about fumbles. I'm talking about, is that a catch? There's some things that really need to be discovered. And if it's two a game, no matter what the coach has, but at least it takes the drama out. You realize what that does? One, the coach quits arguing on the sideline as soon as that video is conclusive and said, no, this was correct. And the fans, you take the drama away from the fans and they don't get irate and really mad at officials. But just get it right. That's all you're asking about because, look, it's hard enough to find officials. We all know that. But the bottom line, I cannot understand why they would have all these controversial calls and not even consider it. Now, that's not the referee's fault. That's the coach's fault for not pushing this issue. They need to go to LHSAA and say, let's push it. And we do. Why can we do it in the Superdome when the road to get there was even harder? So let's get that second opinion and let's get this working. And just make the kids deserve this. So let's make sure the best team get there and they do it fair and square and they get it the right way. And I'm not talking about judgmental calls with the interference or holding calls. I'm talking about things like the fumbles and the things like was that a catch or not a catch? I think that those things are easily reviewable. I had a guy show me one on the sideline. He was a TV guy with a big old camera on him, and he could run it back, and he gave me a great angle on it. And so, if he can do that, the coaches have two cameras. They have sideline cameras. They have one up in the press box. It's too easy to do with the technology today, and we're behind times not to put that in. Look what it's done in the NFL game. Look what it's done in the college game, and how many close calls there are, and how many times they show the officials that they're really good, that they had the right call. Even in baseball, they have it now. And it's just tremendous how close things are in baseball. So let's get up with the technology. Let's get up with the time, and let's just make sure we get it right so the right teams end up in the Superdome.
So, Coach, I know as you're saying this, I'm sure there's at least multiple games and situations that come to mind. And I have a feeling I know the one you're going to say, at least from your time at St. Charles, because I heard a rumor that this actually changed part of your field. One of these plays changed the way your field is structured. What play, or is there a play that stands out to you that still kind of haunts you that you wish that you could have had a replay for them to run back and look at it and double check if it's correct, or if a field goal was made or whatever it may be? Oh,
several. I mean, several. There's not many games that there wouldn't have been some challenges. There was way back when inadvertent whistles, for instance, and way back at Lutcher. There have been many times that you can go over things that you can look at almost every game and say, I think every fumble is really controversial. I think every fumble, and that's the reason I would like to have it, because I think they're very controversial. Was his knee down when the ball come out? And all of a sudden, because a lot of times, the fans will start to get in a frenzy, and all of a sudden the referee might say, well, you give them the judgment because the fans did that. I hope that that's not the case. Did a guy step out of bounds? Was that field goal good? And we lost the ball game one night. And in fact, I thought the field goal was good. 2-minute offense, and it was a playoff game, first playoff. And in fact, it was my first playoff game at St. Charles. I thought the field goal was good. And you know what I did the next night? The next year, I extended the goalpost another 10 feet. I put another flange on it. And I said, well, because I thought it went inside the upright. And they said, no, it went over it. And I said, well, so the bottom line is the most important thing, let's get it right. And like I said, when an official sees the play, and it's hard to get officials now, but when they see it full time and full speed at first, it looks different. But then all of a sudden, when you slow it down, how many times we watch it on television, even in baseball? I watched a lot of baseball. You said, well, I thought the guy was safe. All of a sudden, they slow it down. Nope, he was out. And they got it right. So let's just get it right. That's the most important thing. It's hard enough. And like I said, real time is different. But all of a sudden, when you say, wait a minute now, let's check this out and see if this is really the case. And I think, like I said, if it's ruled against the fans or the coach, he doesn't have a beef anymore. But if it without a ruling on it, they'll live their rest of their life and say, hey, we got shafted in this ball game. So let's take it out. It's too easy to put in. We already got the technology.
Thanks, Coach. And if it wasn't obvious enough, I was hinting at that Cecilia game that you were just mentioning with the field goal. But let's go ahead and move on to our Blitz the Ball Coach segment, where you want to discuss intentional grounding. So, Coach, go ahead and explain intentional grounding for us.
First of all, the intentional ground is when the quarterback throws the ball away and there's no receiver in the area. That's the general definition of it. A few years ago in Louisiana, you could not do this. And then they decided, the committee, LHSAA decided, well, we're going to put it in as a pilot program. And so they let us put it in where a quarterback could scramble and throw the ball out of bounds if he didn't have an open receiver. I thought it was a great deal. And I stood up on the floor at one of the rules meeting, and I made that case. I said, this is a great safety mechanism because a guy could get blown up, because I lost the quarterback because he could not do that particular year. I couldn't instruct him to throw it away. Well, don't you know, once you put in the next year, one of my quarterbacks wanted to throw it away. And I said, you can't do it this year because they put the rule back in where a quarterback couldn't. Now, within the last 2 years, the rule is back in. So what the rule says, if the quarterback breaks the tackle box, if he scrambles, all of a sudden he goes in, or he scrambles, he's outside the tackle box, he can throw the ball out of bounds to save himself a hit if no receiver is open. But remember, the ball must cross the line of scrimmage, and he just can't spike the ball and throw it straight down. In fact, they had to put I wanted everybody to know this, they had to put a certain definition about when a guy kills the clock and he's trying to kill the clock in a 2-minute offense and he goes underneath the center. They had to say that was not intentional grounding. So they had to put a special rule in for that. So basically, intentional grounding is, it's a loss of down. I'm throwing the ball. I have to throw the ball forward past the line of scrimmage, but I have to break the tackle box. The tackle box is between the offensive tackle on the right, offensive tackle on the left, and it has to be outside of that area. And naturally, it's behind the line of scrimmage. Now, if you're in the pocket, even now on all levels. So what that did, it really clarified a lot of things. That every level now, high school, college, and pro, has the same rule, because people don't understand. They go to a college game on Saturday, a high school game on Friday, and they have a different set of rules of different things. Well, that's one rule that's consistent in all three levels.
Thanks, Coach. And I know you've mentioned as well you like the consistency in rules, especially at the high school level. But, Coach, that'll do it for our show this week, as there's no games to pick. There's no locks of the week this week, but we will next week.
So we'll save some money. We'll save some money this week, Jason.
Coach, I need to save some money. I need to save it. So what we'll do is next week for our locks of the week, we'll go ahead and discuss our picks for the playoffs. But Coach, any final thoughts before we give our social medias? Yeah,
I just think that be on the lookout, everybody. First of all, hope everybody gets ready for Christmas and prepare. Remember, with the purpose for Christmas, it's the Advent season for our Lord coming. But this guy Ohtani in baseball is about ready to sign the biggest contract ever. He might have to own a third world country pretty soon. But he's about ready to. Trout signed one for about $430 million. And this one is going to dwarf that one. So be on the lookout for this big one. He'll be the highest paid athlete in the history of sports.
Yeah, I'll take 0.1% of that, Coach. I mean, that would be wonderful. Like, I'll take 0.01% of that. That'd be wonderful.
That'll get me out of the hole. You're right. Buy more Twinkies. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's go ahead and give our social medias. So remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. At Facebook is the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. X, Instagram, and TikTok is the LBF Podcast. So I'll do it for our show. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And remember, follow us on the socials. And every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, you find us right here. But next week's our final show, Coach. And it feels like we just started the season. But again, as quickly as it comes, the season ends. And it's kind of sad because that means the end of football season. I know I know you love baseball, but football hits a little bit different.
Oh, yeah. No question. It's a different intensity. The atmosphere is totally different, when it comes to that. So let's hope and pray that because you'll be right here before you know it. You'll be right back where we are.
Right, and that'll do it for our show. So for Justin Thomas, for head coach Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe. And remember, let's play ball and throw and lay up the good control.